So today on Geese and Glory, we're going to be unpacking the most talked about topic in the F1 world right now. Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda swap seats. Let's get into it.
Yeah. First of all, if you haven't heard of this, where are you? Are you under a rock? But
Were you born yesterday?
yeah, or today, basically. So we put together a little bit of a timeline of how the weekend unfolded, because 2025 season, we're 2 races in. We had a doubleheader to start the season.
Yeah.
We had Australia, which was a wet race. Well, I guess we had testing, and we'll talk about testing. But for kind of let's start with testing. So testing, Red Bull did something a little bit differently to the rest of the teams, where I believe, as far as I understand, they had Liam do all his testing and get it all out of the way, and then they had Max in the car. What the other teams did was they would split the days and have one driver in the car in the morning, the other in the afternoon. But from what I understand, Liam's testing data wasn't very good. And we'll talk about why that might have been, but it kind of starts there. Australia is a wet race, and we see so many DNFs and so many people struggling, and you know, they say rain is a great equalizer, and I do believe in that, but I think with so many rookies, we're equalizing them to a median that we don't know yet for them, because they're so new. Like, what is their average performance? What is the average of the field going to look like with so many new faces? So Australia is kind of like also a throwout. And then we get to China that we just had for sprint weekend as well. And things start to get kind of tricky. So before the race, Christian Horner is being interviewed, and they are asking him about the longevity of Liam in the seat. Like, how long are they going to give him? Well, how many races? What's the threshold for whether or not he stays or leaves? And basically, Christian Horner, queen of deflection, is just kind of saying, like, I won't really say. I don't think it's like a valuable question to answer right now. And given that the fact that, oh my God, how I literally have said nothing. I've just said filler words. I'm so sorry. Given that he's in the seat right now, like, that's the fact of the matter. That's what we're going to focus on. And then they ask him.
Very similar to how they manage Checo rumors as well.
Yeah. And so they also ask him, like, well, if you were going to replace him hypothetically, who would it be? And he also declined to answer, essentially. Said no comment to all of the above questions. So even from the beginning, the reporters are sniffing around it, right? And it's tough. It's tough because Liam, as much as he is a rookie, also has more experience than all the rest of the rookies, has more races under his belt, given in a different car. So it's a tricky situation. And then we get into actual practice and qualifying and the sprint itself. But one of the craziest stats out of the Chinese Grand Prix weekend is that for the first time in like the 20 plus year history of Red Bull racing, they qualified last, and it was Liam qualifying P20 for the sprint that broke that streak of never having qualified last. And I have a note that I wrote down at this point of the weekend. I wrote Helmut Marko is going to kill Liam with his bare hands at this point. And, like, I don't know. We're happy to blame Helmut. He has some commentary that is we don't agree with. But I don't know if it's him or Christian or a combination or who's rooting for who, you know? Because it's always been like, oh, well, the Red Bull organization doesn't love that Yuki is as fiery as he is or something. But, like, it's never been clear who is kind of calling the shots there. So, I don't know. Very interesting. So we start with that.
Yeah.
And then we have regular qualifying, we have the regular Grand Prix, and you know, it's disappointing, but it's a completely resurfaced track. It's a new track for a lot of these rookie drivers, asterisk for Liam. But then we start to get a lot of things in the news of just like things happening. So all of these are US dates. Of 23rd of March, there's an emergency Red Bull meeting called by Helmut Marko, which is why it's my theory that it's like Helmut's the one that wanted him out, but also maybe he was the one who was pumping the brakes on Yuki, or maybe it was Christian, because if Helmut is the one calling the meeting, it would have been then in theory, now knowing what we know, to get Yuki in the seat. So I saw that Racing News 365 reported it, I believe, on that day. And it seems that even in that, when they were asked about it, even Red Bull management and like Red Bull Racing like leadership concedes that the car is really tricky. The car is not easy, essentially. So then
Yeah.
we have a couple days go by. On March 26th in the US, it's like leaked, but like everyone's reporting it. So like, is it really a leak if everyone's reporting it? It's just like Red Bull hasn't posted it yet that Yuki is swapping with Liam, which we can get into how we feel about it. I do think Yuki over Isaac makes sense. I don't think they were going to have like a Kimi Antonelli moment, even though that is going well so far. Again, 2 races in. That's why, and I love this sport because every weekend, whether or not there's a race, whether or not it's the summer break, something's happening. It's gossip, it's updates, it's something. So on the 26th, there's the leak. And on the 27th, today, that we're recording in the US, 28th now in Australia, it was like officially posted both by Red Bull and VCarb. I got an email from VCarb. VCarb, I'm subscribed to your newsletter. Thank you. Let me win your sweepstakes, please. And they send, they have a very lovely thank you, Yuki. And there's updates to the news, and it's all very serious and kind of grave feeling because for them it's a huge loss. Yuki, I was saying last week, I believe in the Yuki effect. You know, I think it's been unlucky with so much rain in Australia and then literally dirty air flipping his front wing at the Chinese Grand Prix, which we'll talk about in the race recap.
Yeah.
But kind of crazy the timeline of events of we just started the season, but then even so, just from like free practice 1 in China to today, like I feel like you can count it in hours if you wanted.
Has been 7 whole days. It's been exactly 7 days. I think free practice 1 started this time.
You are so right.
Week. So it has been literally just under 7 days that this has all unfolded, which means, in my eyes, gives me the impression that maybe Helmut didn't want Liam in the Red Bull to begin with, or they've seen McLaren's domination from the start and they don't want to lose the championship this early because they won the championship last year. Max won the championship last year because he was able to get such a
head start
head start against everyone else. So I think it's a panic move on Red Bull's behalf, and I actually think that it is Helmut that's pulling the strings. I think perhaps Christian didn't want to. I mean, he had Max when he was a rookie for so long.
Yeah, I think
you know, like I think they're trying to rebuild and replace Max for when he inevitably leaves the team, either retires or changes teams.
Yeah, I think Max is Christian's golden boy and Helmut is like the talent manager. Like he's not attached to any one person, I think. And again, do I think he could have better attitudes and mental positions on certain things? Yeah. Do I think it's good to give Yuki an opportunity? Yes. I think they should have given it to him instead of Liam from the get-go. So I think the more that we talk about it, the more I'm kind of being convinced that like Liam was Christian's guy and Helmut is the one that's kind of like, no, that you got to test it out.
Well, I think the reasoning that I heard as well was Yuki is attached to Honda.
Right.
Obviously.
Honda Racing shirt like for that, for anybody who's watching. For anyone who's listening, I'm wearing a Honda Racing shirt.
both repping the Honda. But Honda and Yuki are like, they were
that's
tight.
wrapping up now,
the ins and outs of that partnership or whatever. But Yuki was wrapped in with Honda. And Honda is leaving Red Bull from 2026 and they're being replaced with Ford. So I think that played a part in it as well, because I think Racing Bulls are still staying with Honda, I believe. Not sure. But I think that had a big part in it as well.
Yeah, I think that was a lot of like the waffling between whether or not it will happen for Yuki because of the like expiration date on that Honda presence, which is so interesting. I understand so much. I literally work in sponsorships. I don't know so much of the intricacies of F1 sponsorships, but I understand that money is what makes the sport go round. And so those sponsors do have such a huge influence. But at some point, it's still the sport about racing. It's got to be about the racer. At a certain point, it's got to be about that. And it feels like sometimes it isn't.
Well, that was a big talking point with Checo as well, because he brought in so much money to
And the Disney
Red Bull with
thing,
his...
and that's why they were holding. I remember us talking about this last season.
Yeah. So I think, while it shouldn't be, that is a really large driving factor for at least Red Bull. But I don't know. I think two things, as we said in the last recap episode for the Oz GP, two things can be true at once. Everyone can be collectively happy for Yuki that he's finally getting a shot at the Red Bull, because it can also put these rumors to rest, because if Yuki doesn't perform, what are they going to do?
At that point, it's just so clearly the car. But
yeah. You can also be extremely devastated for Liam at the same time.
Yeah. I want to pose this question to you.
Put through the ringer.
So how, if you're in charge of Red Bull, team principal, how many races are you giving a rookie, agnostic of your existing performance? Like, in a perfect bubble, how many races are you giving a rookie before you decide whether or not it's worth it to keep them, or whether you should swap them out? Like, in our imperfect and flawed understanding and like current, like, what's that threshold for you?
I don't feel like there's a minimum number that you can put on it, but I think, well, me personally, I don't think there's a number that you can put on it, but I think at least like a good amount of races, you need to look at the performance and you need to work out an average of where they are qualifying based on race conditions, sprint weekend,
type of track,
like lack
street
of
track,
experience on the
new,
track,
old, fast corners, slow corners. But
also in comparison to Max as well, because Max hasn't been putting the Red Bull that far up the grid in, respectively, in comparison.
And I don't think that has to do with Max. I think that has to do with the car. I think Max is there.
Yes. We saw that in Australia because he still managed to keep the car on the track. I think another big thing for Red Bull, they're always so money hungry and they're so business orientated. Yes, they want the championship, but I think they also need to look at how much money Liam are costing them, because Checo was obviously performing differently. He was crashing consistently in practice or in the race. He was making those mistakes on track that were then having an added kind of poor outcome rather than just placing low in the grid. He was also costing them millions of dollars, which was, not what they wanted. But Liam, I think they need to look at whether he was actually costing them money as well as positions in the championship.
Yeah, and like the toughest part of that whole thing is like, I feel like he didn't even get the opportunity to get in. Like, I'm a data person. I work in data. I work in market research. Like, 2 data points, you like, once is just a one-off. Twice is a coincidence. 3 times is like the beginning of a pattern. But you don't you can't do anything with 3 points of data. Our minimum, well, for like market research data, our minimum is typically like 60 or 100 to feel comfortable about making an assumption. So for one racing driver, I feel like you gotta get a good representation of how they're actually driving to be able to make a decision. But also, I understand that the stakes are high, and you have to like, this feels, I can't remember who said it. Someone said it was like a panic. This is Red Bull panicking. Fully.
I think as well. What was I was literally just about to say something. They would have Liam's data from the sim as well, because obviously he would have done so much training leading up to the season. They have his data from the sim. So I don't know. No one knows what that sim data looks like either. Maybe this is a consistent thing that has been happening on the sim. I do kind of doubt it based on his performance in the V-Carb last year. I know they have cars, but in comparison. And I think as well, you got to have different tracks in there to be able to look at things, look at whether the performance is the car, the driver, or the circumstances, because Australia was kind of a write-off. Even Alonso.
You can't count that, at all, basically.
No. China, half the grid only raced there for the first time, last year.
We lost a quarter of the grid. Including
yeah.
experienced drivers.
Yeah. So everyone that raced last year, that was for most people the first time that they raced on that circuit last year. And the rookies hadn't raced there before. I think they said out of the rookies, it was only Jack that had raced at that circuit before. So I feel like they need to rank him against people at his level rather than against Max. It made sense to rank Checo against Max.
Experienced drivers.
Checo had a longer career than Max had. That makes sense. But Liam should be ranked against, in between,
maybe Kimi,
the rookies, and Oscar. He needs to be ranked in between the rookies and Oscar, because Oscar's in his third season. Liam has had a couple races under his belt. That's probably he needs to be ranked against.
Well, and that's where I have a note here in our notes saying that, like, I think part of it is, like, Max kind of has the it factor. And I think that's part of the conversation, too, of, like, is it the car? I think so. I think that car is impossible. I think that the development of that car, and I think I literally saw it on Pinterest. A Pinterest screenshot of what I believe was a Tumblr post, because I'm re-experiencing my 2014 era. Saying something like,
I love that.
Thank you so much. I'm actually having a great time. Don't look for me on Tumblr. Let me live my life. Of saying that the car was so developed to be driven in such a specific way by Daniel and Max that they like it such a specific way. And then with Adrian Newey's presence and developing that in that direction, I fear they have gone too far in a certain direction that only the 2026 regulations at this point are going to be able to save them. But I've also got in our notes that my theory is that this is kind of the beginning of the end for Red Bull. I don't think it's the permanent end, but I do think they'll have a Mercedes moment. Like, they won't be part of the conversation.
They'll have to start again. But I agree. I think that, Christian has said it. Maybe it was in Drive to Survive. I don't know. But Christian said it at some point this season / end of last season, somewhere in the last couple of 12 months. But he spoke about the development of making the car around Max. And I think Albon spoke about it in that podcast that he was on.
That it was impossible.
Maybe a year and a half.
It was so specific to Max and his preferences.
But not only the car being so specific to Max, but the management of the team and the data that they got and how Helmut treated him and everything like that. It was all around how Max works, because Max, we can see, he's very tough skin. He's very to the point, and they treated both drivers like that. And I think Daniel worked really well. Obviously, that was in the developmental years where they were starting to build the car around Max and starting to prioritize him. But I think we've only seen Daniel succeed as a second driver for Max. And I think you're right. I think they've developed the internal workings of the car, the understeer, the oversteer, the weight distribution. They have developed that car to suit Max. And then because of that, they have had to develop the aero pack to fit how the car works from the inside and make sure that the aero pack can move in the way that they want and work in the way that they want to support how Max drives. Yeah. So I think even if they had any other person in the Red Bull seat, everyone would feel the same. Yeah. I think even Lewis would struggle.
Yeah, I think well, that's what's so tricky is it's not just like any driver, like silly season, new team. It's not like get to know a new car. It's like get to know a new car and get in the head of your biggest rival ever in this generation of racing.
Yeah.
You know, which also, like, I don't know how, I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts about it. Of like, what does this mean for like Max's longevity at the team? If like he's not able to hold, if he's not able to hold down a teammate to be consistent, because like, yes, I'm sure he wants to keep winning drivers' championships, but if he can't do that, he should at least be able to, like, I'm sure he at least wants to win the constructors. You know,
Yeah.
and like, if that's not even possible, why is he there? If neither of those are possible, there's no like, there's no built-in backup of somebody keeping up with you. And honestly, this is not even a conversation about Max. We're talking about Yuki and Liam, but like, that's gotta also kind of be lonely. Like they say, there's all these songs about how it's lonely at the top, but like, kinda. And then on the descent, at this point, in my point of view,
it's lonely at the top, especially when your teammate can't even, you know, not only support you, but can't push you either. We can see a strong teammate partnership between McLaren at the moment, and they push each other to be better so that they can be prioritized. I think that's going to be the whole theme of McLaren this year. But Red Bull hasn't had that since Daniel was there, because that's why they were fighting. Because
they didn't have a second driver to Max. They were equal.
No. Yeah, because they both wanted that, and they were both pushing each other to the point where it got too far.
And I think it was also a time where they were allowed to race, which we'll talk about it in the race recap about the McLarens. Well, I want to talk about it. And then it like, they were allowed to race, and like, they weren't soft about racing. Like,
no,
they went for it.
There weren't any rules. They were
and
like
like,
just
even pre-Max, like, Red Bull kind of let them do their thing of like, we have Multi-21 as a story because Sebastian Vettel is insane. He's such a sweet guy. Like, now
he is,
but like,
now.
Put it like, it's literally like these. It's like him and Max. Like, you take them out of the car, and it's like, oh, haha, funny. Like do little daisies and flowers and bunnies.
Villain era Seb scares me. I'm sorry.
Put them behind the wheel of a car, and I'd like to be behind the barriers.
Yeah.
Because they're hunting.
Don't let me.
That's a predator. That's not a human man.
No,
that's Predator from the movie Predator.
And Prime Alonso as
Terrifying.
well. Because he was like Red Bull's, like, you know. Yeah.
Because he's no longer behind the wheel of a car. What was it that he said about Michael Schumacher? I knew he would break. Wasn't that him? I knew he'd break because he has a wife and kids.
Yeah. Because I think the reporter asked like how he like made that overtake or something, and he said, I knew that I could break later because he has a wife and kids.
But then also Michael Schumacher in his day and age, getting out of a car ready to fist fight someone. We need that back. Not to condone physical violence, but we need that back in Formula 1.
A little bit. Can we bring back some spice?
I know. And so, like,
can we get the FIA out for like
it's races? This whole conversation where no one can keep up with Max because they've not only chosen Max as their number one driver. That's fine, but they've chosen Max as like the chosen one for the whole team. So like, in everything that we've said, of like, everything is catered toward him. There's no consideration for someone else, and that's going to set, if you have no redundancy whatsoever in your team where someone else can do it, where someone else can keep up, can score points, can get on podiums, then you like, it's just such fine margins.
They've shot themselves in the
foot. If you can't meet that one specific goal, then it's not happening at all. And that's where I think they've set themselves up for a little bit of failure.
Yeah, we can see it. Even in the way they manage their social channels. You know, Max doesn't like to do a lot of social media stuff, so they don't do it. They don't even do it with their second driver. They didn't do it with Checo. But we saw with Mercedes, Lewis didn't love doing social stuff, so they got George involved, and that became his forte, and they got the team involved. And Aston Martin, Lance doesn't really like doing social stuff either, so the whole team has become kind of famous on TikTok for their social presence. So I think that Red Bull have just dug themselves in this like really deep Max hole.
Yeah.
That they might take quite a long time to get out of when he leaves.
And I think,
and I say when because it's inevitable.
I think they're lucky, actually, honestly, that we have the 2026 regulations coming up, because it kind of is a soft restart for everyone. And I do think that, like,
everyone will be kind of on the same playing field.
Yeah, and I like, it's not, Adrian Newey's an incredible mind, but the rest of the Red Bull engineering team is incredible too. You know, they have a chance to kind of do it. I think that does set them up so that they don't fall too far behind, you know. So I don't know. I think it being so max geared is so interesting. I am really curious to see how Yuki goes. I do think, honestly, it's the way that they hurt poor Daniel, taking him out before Austin. They've made up for it, even though they even though they stabbed Liam in the back and pushed him out of an airplane, basically.
Yeah, with no
giving
parachute.
Yuki his debut in Japan, I have to say,
Wild.
I hate to say it because
It's very
and like
poetic.
we said it, we can be so happy for Yuki and so devastated for Liam. But this one's a good move. This debut in Japan at home, huge. Huge.
It's a way to really get the Japanese fans on board. But I do just wonder if he doesn't perform and he gets dropped from the team.
Who's next?
That's
Swap Isaacin?
Such
if you can't hold down a second driver,
you know what? Put Charles in
who's
the seat.
The problem?
Actually, do you know who I think could drive that car? Do you know who I think could drive that car really well? Oscar.
Ooh, I see. Because I would be fascinated to see.
But Oscar will never go to Red Bull. I don't think Mark would let that.
No, I don't. He's already having PTSD flashbacks. I said multi-21. He's probably rolling, he's twitching, something's happening to him. Every time someone says multi-21, Mark Webber just has a visceral reaction.
Especially when considering Lando said it in the cooldown room.
I'm trying to figure out about what, but I was rewinding. I rewound it 3 times because I was watching it afterwards, and I was like, why? Yeah. Why is he saying it? And then they're talking about Schumacher and someone else, and I'm like, explain. I need a community note.
Yeah. No, I think they were just talking about rivalries.
Interesting to unpack, but I do want to talk about the race recap. Put a pin
in that. We'll unpack that later.
Teasers for the race recap.
So make sure you tune in for that.
Just let this episode end and then just listen to the race recap after.
Yeah.
But yeah. I don't know.
But yes, I think it is a strategic move on Red Bull's part to debut Yuki in Japan. I think
to make a panic decision easier to swallow.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. To get fans on board and not make Red Bull not look like the bad guy.
But that's what I was gonna say. It's if there's at some point you're the problem. I don't think all these drivers. Alex Albon's showing 100%. Great form in Williams. Pierre Gasly's doing great.
Christian asked for him back.
What?
Did you know that?
Say that again?
Christian asked for Alex to come back.
No, he didn't.
Yeah. I don't remember where I saw it, but Alex was asked if he would return to Red Bull. And he was offered.
But that's insane because all of these people are rotating doors next to Max, and at some point, I don't think Max is the problem.
That's what it was. I remember now. Sorry to interrupt. Christian was doing an interview, and I think it was Crofty or Ted Kravis or something, and they were asking, maybe it was the same interview that you saw where he was asking about Liam. And Christian said that Red Bull always take a chance on young rookie drivers. They did it with Max. They did it with Albon. They did it with Gasly. And Christian said if no other team at that time wanted to take on these rookies. And he said, but you now look at Alex's performance in the Williams. It's very consistent. It's very strong. You look at Gasly's performance. Where did they all start? Red Bull. And he turned it back onto them. And I was like, I'm sorry. But
you got rid of them.
Teams that they are at
you can't own their success after they've left.
No, you cannot ask for a thank you from Alex and Pierre that you set up their careers, and Carlos. He also mentioned Carlos.
Yes,
you cannot expect a thank you from them because you opened the door. They have put in the work after you tainted their mental health, their confidence,
their ability.
You stunted their growth. You stop them at a top team and they're now lower in the grid because you didn't give them the chance to prove themselves for a whole season.
Or set them up too early or
That's
something.
not fair.
And here's the thing.
That's not fair.
Here's the thing. Christian Horner, I think, is wrong for saying that. But do I love that he's just giving us things to talk about and stirring the pot and being crazy? I love him for that. Do I think he's legitimately insane? Yes.
He's so delusional. He is so delusional.
Rewatching like the scandal from 2024 in DTS, Christian Horner is just, oh my god, he's insane. He's crazy. Yeah. I love it.
He's got his blinders on. He can't see anything other than like
the
what's
Christian
in front
Horner
of him.
show.
But
it's fascinating. What an individual.
Is like that. Like if you ever got your first job, like, and you run into your old boss, and they're like, "Oh, where are you at now?" And they're like, "Oh, like I'm manager of this company, and like blah blah blah. I've moved and blah blah." It's like, "Oh well, lucky I gave you that job 6 years ago, huh? You wouldn't be here today if I didn't take that chance." This is all from
it's the
me.
Christian Horner show. I'm telling you.
Where's my thanks?
Where's
my hug?
I'm gonna die. Okay, yeah.
Oh,
agree. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think we've talked a bit about. We've obviously talked about the Max of it all. We've talked about the Yuki of it all. I think to give Liam his flowers on this casket of his Red Bull blink of an eye, because I don't know. I don't think it was. I think I was. Shout out to my friend Jack, who's a Red Bull fan. He said. He described it as brutal. And I was like, that is exactly the perfect word to describe it as. Like, it is not civilized. It's not thoughtful. It's brutal.
It is. It's taken the human aspect out of it completely. And you wouldn't have seen it because you're still
Social
off
media.
Instagram. But Liam made a post. And it was really cute. It had a photo of him in like preschool, kindergarten. Then it had a photo of like a drawing that he did, and it said like, "What do you want to be when you're older?" And it was a driver, and it said F1 driver, and he had like spiky hair, and he was in a race suit. And then it switched to a couple pictures of him in Red Bull, and his caption was like, "It's always been my dream to drive for Red Bull, like." Whether or not my story ends here with Red Bull, like I can say that I hit that dream because I drove for them, like something like that. And I was like, oh
yeah,
Liam.
Seriously.
And like, I'm not the biggest Liam fan.
Well, yeah,
we're
like, just saying.
He's still to
we're
grow
still
on
kind of trying to figure out.
He's a person, like this is his dream. This is what these
That's the only thing they want.
Entire lives to. Like, this is devastating. Anyone, like, no matter who it is, this is devastating.
Yeah. I just think...
Moment of silence.
No, I know, seriously. There's just no words for it sometimes. It, like you said, it doesn't feel very human. It's like... It's almost like AI looked at it and was like, nah.
Yeah.
It's just like a decision to kind of cut it out. And that's devastating. That's like, and that's the toughest part too, is I have notes here for all of the other, like even Daniil Kvyat. They all got more time than him, more races. Yeah. Even half a season. Yeah. I think Pierre Gasly was the one who got the shortest amount of time. He got like...
Yeah, and I think that was like 20... Gasly got 12 GPs.
He got about half a season.
Prove himself. Yeah. Yeah. And there has been speculation that perhaps Liam also asked for this.
Really?
Because he had said in interviews that the V-carb was a lot easier to drive, and he did find it was easier to adapt to the V-carb. Yeah. So I don't know whether maybe he had a part in it.
Yeah.
But there are also rumors that he didn't know that this was being spoken about until the rumors started to come out from ESPN and Racing News 365 with like the photoshopped, with the photoshopped picture of Yuki in a Red Bull suit, which is exactly what happened.
Going around.
went
during
downhill.
the season.
Yeah.
Okay, but actually, quick sidebar on that. When I saw my social media is limited to LinkedIn right now because I've deleted everything else. And so I saw the Red Bull announcement, like
And
the official announcement. And what is so hilarious to me, besides the fact that they've simply fully photoshopped Yuki onto Liam, is the fact that Yuki and Max are the same height. Because that's the furthest short king, the furthest thing from the truth,
I
though.
didn't see that.
I was like, why is this so uncanny valley to me? And I was like, it's because the top of Yuki's head is at the top of Max's head. So unless they put
I
him on an
didn't
apple
see
crate,
that.
like, that's simply not happening.
It's giving when they photoshopped Franco's head onto
And they
Logan's
didn't change
body
the
and
name.
forgot to change
Yeah.
the racing number.
Yeah.
Yeah, wild. But on the topic of Instagram and whatnot, there was a post that got circulated by, we're gonna apologize in advance for the pronunciation.
We tried looking it up, but it was too Dutch.
It's in fact too Dutch for us to pronounce. Quieto van de
I
Garde.
think the last part is good. I don't speak Dutch.
Okay. I don't know about. Well, I found out last week that everyone says Max Verstappen wrong, so it's okay.
Isn't it Verstappen or something? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think we say our A's different. Anyway, so maybe it's Van de God.
Oh, yeah, that sounds really Dutch. I believe it. I promise.
You're Van de God. Okay. Anyway, he made a post on Instagram as a racing driver. And it was a picture of Liam. To summarize it, he pretty much spoke about how if you underperform in the sport, you face consequences. That's like a well-known thing. But there's a difference in facing consequences based on data and performance and just straight up bullying.
Mm-hmm.
And he did say that this appears closer to bullying or like a panic move on Red Bull's behalf rather than a performance-based strategic decision.
I agree with the latter. I think calling it bullying is wild. I would love to know. I would love for him to expand on that.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting...
Especially coming from a driver.
Choice. Yeah, I think that's an interesting choice of description to use. Interesting way to describe it. He also said that he can only imagine that this crushed Liam's spirit as well, which,
Fair.
you know, he's worked his whole life for. It only makes sense. The way he signed it off was, I think, a message to Liam. Trust yourself, get your head up, prove them wrong. Tagged Liam. Now, the reason that I'm bringing this to our attention is because it's going viral at the moment because Max liked the post. So that's kind of giving the impression that Max is pro Liam in all of this. Not necessarily saying he's you know, con Yuki or like he's not on Yuki's side. But I think that Max can see Liam from behind closed doors and is like, this is shit.
And I appreciate that about him. I don't think that's probably against media training to not like explicitly and loudly simply agree with the capital O organization, like the big they behind, Red Bull Racing. Gosh, I was just about to say something too. And as much as that's tough, I think Max really enjoys being challenged though. Because like he was smiling, he is excited when he was winning in the Red Bull when it was 20 ridiculous seconds ahead. But when he was in close races, when he had to fight for it, Brazil was when he looked last season like the most energized. So I agree with you in saying that I don't think it's like anti Yuki, because I'm hoping we don't know anything yet. Who knows?
No,
but I hope that Yuki can keep up with him, and figure out the car and
I really hope.
And be that challenge that I think Max does enjoy. But I think it is so human of Max to react this way, probably in the face of what his media manager would have wanted him to do. Like, that's not a media manager with Max's phone, that's Max on his phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, Max even said in the 2023 season, at the end of that season, whether he wanted to go for Schumacher and Lewis's record of 7 world championships. And I think there was more conversation there, but Max said that if he's not battling anyone and they're just winning because the car is fast and because Max is a good driver, that he puts it there, it's boring. That's not what he came to do, and that he'd leave unless he had a title challenger. And I think he got that with Lando last year. But now it's flipped, and he doesn't have the car to support the car or the teammate to support his battles this year. Because if the cars or the driving is a lot closer than what we saw with Checo and Max, obviously we see with McLaren, you can team up and you can take him 2-1. Yeah, I think this is all very interesting. There is a number theory, though.
Explain to me. You mentioned this right before we started recording, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, so I saw this on TikTok or Instagram from lovely creator that I follow, Amy. I can't pronounce her last name because it's European. Pekovic? Amy Pekovic. She's Australian. She's from Sydney. We've met. Love her. She's a sweetie. But she reposted this collage that people made, which is the number theory. And I didn't look too much into it. However, there are a lot of 2s floating around. So, Kvyat was replaced after 21 GPs. Gasly was replaced after 12 GPs. Albon replaced after 26 GPs. Liam replaced after 2 GPs. And Yuki's race number is 22.
Interesting.
So I don't know where Checo and Daniel fit in with all of this.
Yeah.
Because they weren't really like mid-season replacements.
Well, because speaking of number theory, then maybe I've had my own number theory, because Max has always had, with Daniel, he had matching numbers, because it was 33 and 3, right? Yeah. And then he was the championship winner, so he got 1, and Checo was 11.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting to me right now that he's 1, and Liam's number was 30, so I was like, oh, maybe this is like an omen that he's not going to win the championship, so that he'll have to give up the number 1 and take 3 again and match with his teammate once more. But
even if that does happen, it'll be 33 and 22.
Yes.
If Yuki stays his teammate.
So,
which will still be...
Does anybody with a crystal ball and like candles want to tell us what's going to happen? Can someone do like a candle?
Any Etsy witches want to get on our pod? You know, explain this to us.
Witch Talk, this one's for you. Who's going to win? Actually, I would love Witch Talk to tell me who they think is going to win based off of the cards and the stars. Yeah. Straight up.
Yeah.
I believe in that. Stars are out there, they're real, and so are the planets. And I know that.
That's a fact. I see them every night.
Oh, yeah, me and the moon. Yeah, we're just like that. So, we're besties.
Yeah.
I actually do love the moon. The moon. I make moon water sometimes. Do you know that? You put your intentions into the water in like a glass. It has to be glass. And you put your intentions into the water. This is an F1 podcast, guys. You put your intentions into the water and you leave it in a full moonlight overnight. And then I don't really know what you do with it. I still have moon water left over. I don't really know. But I think you drink it when you want your intentions to come true, or just like it's supposed to be like cleansing and good for your energy. I have no idea. But I do it sometimes. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Do you feel better?
I don't know. I haven't finished my moon water from like several full moons ago. So maybe I'll finish it. Maybe I'll finish it before. Maybe I'll drink it before the Japan Grand Prix, and we'll see how Yuki does.
I'm sorry, I can't leave water sitting there that long.
It's just in the fridge.
I would have to.
It's in glass.
Yeah, I know, but that's been too long for me.
It's just water.
Yeah, I don't know. Something about it.
Okay, maybe I won't drink it. Maybe I will. I don't know.
No, I mean, it's fine. It's just a preference that I have. Like, if you leave your drink bottle next to your bed, and then, like, you go away for 2 days and you come back, you're not like, oh, yay, full drink bottle. You're like, ew.
Yeah, fair. But it's glass and it's in the fridge, right?
Yeah.
I'll probably still drink it.
Is it covered?
I'll probably still drink it. If I get sick, then we know.
All right, let me know if you drink it before the Japanese Grand Prix.
Yeah.
I want to know. what you feel is different after that. Anyway, to finish our episode on our F1 podcast about Liam and Yuki's seat switching.
Not Moonwater.
Wishing Yuki all the best in the Red Bull. I really, really, really hope that he can put it up the grid. Also, to just as a FU to Helmet for not giving him that seat at the beginning of the season. I hope that he puts it there to prove them wrong, that they made the wrong decision. Not the wrong decision, but they could have made a better decision last year.
Yeah.
And I do hope that Liam can perform better in the V Cup so that this is not the end of his F1 career, and that he can redeem himself in the F1 world completely.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself.
And I hope Max will vibe with whoever.
Yeah, he's pretty chill. I can't believe he's gonna be a dad.
I know, soon.
But I mean, not that he's not like a paternal figure to Pete, but just like father his own child. How pregnant is Kelly now?
Yeah, probably pretty pregnant.
Oof. Well,
I'm not gonna make a comment about that. I was gonna say something. I'm just gonna leave it there.
Sounds like the end of the episode
right.
then. Bye.